Hello, you lovely, fanciful folk. In this video, I'm redesigning my 1903 combinations. As there is simply a significant lack of lace and frills, at least on the lower quarters, I find, why not, keep the chemise and change the drawers. Before destroying my repurposed white cotton bedding, it is necessary to find plenty of research in order for this item, though only the unmentionables, to be correctly constructed. I primarily referenced the Harper's Bazar magazines from 1867 through 1898, and the authentic Victorian Dressmaking Techniques book. I've been doing quite a little bit of research, and I've finally figured out a pattern and kind of decided the measurements, what they should be, and how the overall product should look at the end. But before we can even begin thinking about drafting and cutting, first things first, the original drawers must go, with the aid of a little fluffy kitten. What are you doing? The floof. You're more like a chunk. That's what you are. And now I can begin cutting out my pattern. But I did do the foolish thing of using my mock-up as my finished garment instead of cutting out another panel and entire yoke and such. But it's fine. No one's going to see it, right? It's fine, I say. The pattern was cut on the fold twice to allow for gathering at the yoke and the bottom edge for each panel. When designing the yoke, I divided the entire strip into 3 parts, the first measurement reaching from hip to hip, and then dividing that measurement by 2 to be placed on the fold. Then cut 2 more pieces of the folded measurement to make up the 2 back panels. All in all, this should be the exact size of your waist. Now that I have all my pieces cut out and they fit and everything is perfect and ready to go, I think I want to sew everything together on my hand crank sewing machine. Now, the next thing for me to do is to figure out where the incision lace is going to be located. And I think I'm going to have 2 or 3 layers of lace. And that means there's going to be a lot of pinning and hand sewing that needs to be done. After several days of painstakingly hand stitching all of these pieces of lace to the drawers, it is finally time to add this soft cotton lace. I had just enough left over literally to finish the drawers. So I just added that to the bottom. The edges have already sort of been turned over and finished. Then I think I'm going to try to stitch up everything onto the yoke. The next step in making our drawers is to figure out the circumference of my thigh in order for me to get the right amount of ribbon to be threaded through these eyelets down here so that it can be tight enough to be tied and be comfortably worn when it's tightened. The circumference of my thigh when it's flexed is 22 inches. So I think I'm going to make the ribbons each 30 inches. And if I have any excess, then I'll trim it off. But for this side, 30 inches, and then for this side, 30 inches. That might be a little bit excessive, but I'd rather have too much than not enough. So I'm going to thread the, what is this? This is 1 inch, kind of a cotton sateen ribbon into the drawers. Now that the ribbons are all woven in and looking actually very nice, I'm going to go ahead and pin 2 of the back panels. I'm going to sew up the seam here. I'm going to leave about 3 inches of gap beneath so I can have room to make any adjustments I needed, fell it down, finish it, and then keep working. Hello friends. So last night I got a lot of stuff done. Even though it doesn't really look like it, I did. And it's halfway finished at this point, and I'm very excited because it's one step closer to having one thing marked off the costume college list, and that's great. And it's really fluffy and pretty, and it makes me very happy. So I'll just explain what I did last night since I didn't record anything because it was nighttime, and nighttime light is not good. So after I sewed down the back panel piece together, and historically this pattern would have worked perfectly for open drawers, but I just decided to close them up because practicality, 21st century, I don't need this. So, and it's just for pretty, for me, I guess, in functionality for dresses, but whatever. Modesty is important, but if you wanted to make an open drawer, you wouldn't sew these 2 panels together. You would finish them with a felling stitch or a French seam, and then you would gather it in a way so that they would sort of overlap. But since I'm not doing that, I just sewed down the seam here together. I'm going to have to fell down the stitches. But the first thing I ended up doing was I took one panel, or one side of the drawers, I gathered it, found the center of the yoke, pinned it like this so the right sides were facing each other, and then I used pins to help me determine how much gathering I needed to have in order for the panel to fit the yoke. But here at the front, where there will be closures, all I did was fell down the seam here at the front where the closures will be, and then I pinned down the panel here where I wanted it to still be open enough for me to slip it over my hips and tie it tight. And this is where I will be sewing together the other side of the panel. So there is a change I'm going to have to make to this whole panel, and that is here at the bottom. I don't know why. In my defense, I was following a historical pattern, and I don't like it. I don't like this part here. So I'm just going to go back to what I know about Civil War bloomers and drawers, and just basically make a rectangle and sew it down like this so it meets up with the lace at the bottom. So that's on the agenda, but I'm also hungry. So I'm going to go have some lunch. But I just kind of wanted to give you an update of how it's looking so far, and I'm very proud of how it looks, and I'm very, very happy because it's so pretty and squishy. Now that all of the sides of the drawers are stitched up and finished clothes and the yoke is attached, this is practically finished, and I'm actually a little ashamed to say that this did not take 3 days to make. It has in fact taken about 2 weeks because I have not found the motivation to finish anything right now. So the next step for me to do is figure out how high I want this front closure to be, just so that I can easily go over my hips. This is where my waist is, and the hips are coming out here. And then we'll turn it out, and it will be finished. Finally!
And that is it. The combinations are completed and laced to the backs. Although, I believe it is high time to move on to the next project. Don't you think?